Hi everyone, today we're going to go through the 2022 Section 1 paper for the SQA National 5 Biology exam. At any point in this video, feel free to pause it, have a go at the questions and see how you get on. But I will go through and show my working out alongside the correct answers. So, question 1 is a diagram shows a plant cell after being placed in a liquid for 30 minutes. Okay, so you've got the diagram of the cell there. The cell has become, and you'll be given options A, B, C or D. Again, feel free to pause this video and see how you get on. Okay, so I'm going to go through my working outs in this. So we've got a plant cell and 30 minutes. I always underline things that I think are important, such as specific names and numbers. And we've got the diagram here. So we know it's a plant cell because we can see there's a cell wall, the cell membrane, and we're looking for what's happened to it. So when we see these gaps here, we know that there's been some sort of shrinkage going on. Now, that would tell me it's been plasmolysed. Okay. Now, if it was to gain water, it would not have shrunk down like this. It would be much more full. It would be turgid. So I mustn't have the answer as A. The following statements relate to the transport of molecules across cell membranes. So you've got statement 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is energy is required. 2 are molecules move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. And 3 is membrane proteins are involved. Which of the following statements apply to additive transport? And again, we've got A, B, C or D, and feel free to pause the video. Okay, so we are looking at transport across membranes and statements to active transport. Now, active tells me that I'm moving around and I'm burning lots of energy and I'm not being lazy and passive. So, energy is required. Now, statement 2, molecules move from area of high to low would actually be passive movement. That's like osmosis, where it moves by itself. It's using the potential it has from that area of high concentration to move to that area of low concentration. It does not require energy. So number 2 is not going to be involved here. Membrane proteins are involved. Now, that is true. Okay, so I've got those proteins involved in the membrane that are allowing passage through the membrane of substances. So I've got statements 1 and 3, and the only ones here that have 1 and 3 is B. So the answer is B. Number 3, an investigation into the effects of different solutions on plant cells. A beetroot cylinder was dried with a paper towel, weighed and placed in a concentrated salt solution. After 30 minutes, the beetroot cylinder was removed from the salt solution, dried and reweighed. It was then placed in water for 30 minutes, removed, dried and reweighed. Which row in the table shows the most likely results? So again, you've got A, B, C or D. Okay. So we're having a look at this and we have got, again, so I'm going through this, I'm just going through everything. So I've got a concentrated salt solution, I've got beetroot, so I've got 30 minutes there, and I've got it's been dried, it's reweighed, okay, but it's then placed in water for another 30 minutes. Okay, so I've got my initial mass going down the first column, my mass after the salt solution in the second column, and my mass after being in the water in the third column. Now, if I was going to place it in my salt solution, okay, so if I'm looking at this here, so I would want to go, if it's in a salt solution, it means, for example, if I draw this, I change to blue, all that means is that there is going to be more salt, so I do salt with pink here. There's going to be more salt than there is going to be water, which means when I place my beetroot, which I'm going to signify with green, Okay, there's going to be more salt on the outside of the cell than there. So it's going to be more water inside the cell than outside the cell. So that means that I'm going to lose mass, which means I must have a less mass than I begin with. And the only one that has less mass is going to be C. And again, that makes sense when we look at the water one, because I've gained more mass than I started with. So the answer here must be C. Okay. Where in a cell would mRNA not be found? That's question 4. Well, we're looking at mRNA, or messenger ribonucleic acid, and where would it not be found? Well, it's definitely going to be found in the nucleus, because that's where the whole DNA and protein synthesis process begins. It has to move through the cytoplasm to get to the ribosome. So that scores those three answers straight away, which means the answer here is got to be A, which is the cell membrane. Question 5, the diagram represents 3 stages in an enzyme-controlled reaction. Which row on the table identifies the labelled structures? Again, feel free to pause the video and have a go. Okay, the first thing I do on a question like this is I would actually tackle what all these things are in the diagram without actually looking at the table first. So I'm looking at an enzyme reaction which is going in this direction. So I've started with 2 things here and I've got 1 thing over here. That would tell me that these L and M are going to be substrates and this N is going to be a product. Okay. So if I look straight away, this means that this part here, so K, is going to be my enzyme. So that remains unchanged. So that can narrow my answers down very quickly. So enzymes that are K, it's going to be answers B or D. And then if I'm looking for product to be N, it's going to be this one here. So the answer for 5 is D. So the following statements relate to cellular processes. Okay, so number 1, completed in the mitochondria, affected by temperature, release oxygen. Which of the statements are correct for aerobic respiration? Is it completed in the mitochondria? Yes, because that is a site of aerobic respiration within the cell. Is it affected by temperature? Yes. Does it release oxygen? No. It uses oxygen. You know, aerobic respiration will happen in the presence of oxygen, but it will not release oxygen. So that means that 1 and 2 are correct, which makes it A. Number 7, a patient is diagnosed with a tumour in the part of the brain labelled X. Which of the following effects on brain function might the patient experience due to the tumour? So I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, we need to know our parts of the brain. Okay, we need to know at least 3 of the parts. So we should have known this area here and this area just in here. Okay, so this area X is actually our cerebellum, and it is coordination and balance. And so if I have, it will not affect memory, that's my cerebrum. Heart rate and breathing rate is my medulla. And so balance has to be with D, so that's going to be my cerebellum. Question 8. Which of the following shows the pathway involved in a reflex arc after a person touches a very hot object? Okay, so we've got very hot object and reflex arc. So first off, I need to sense that there's an issue, there's a concern, there's a threat. So that means a sensory neuron is going to be involved first, not a motor neuron. So I've answered it down, it's going to be either A or B. Now, if we are looking at what's going to happen here, we've got a sensory neuron, it goes to the interneuron and a motor neuron. It does not go to the brain. It could potentially run through the spinal cord, but it is an interneuron, and a motor neuron. And the motor neuron comes last because that's what takes the effect, and that's going to be B. Number 9, the flow chart shows how the water concentration of blood in the human body is controlled by a hormone. So we've got a description here of what's going on. The brain detects a decrease in the water concentration of blood. A hormone is released from an endocrine gland and travels in the blood. Kidneys regulate water concentration of blood, and water concentration of blood returns to normal. A target tissue for this hormone is the something. So we've got A, B, C, or D. Again, pause the video, have a go. Okay, so if we are looking at the brain detecting a decrease, we know that that is not going to be the target tissue for the hormone. Okay, because the hormone is released from an endocrine gland. So we know it's not the endocrine gland, we know it's not the brain. Now, blood is not a tissue. Okay, it's the vector in which the hormone is transported. It is a liquid, but the kidney is definitely the tissue that's going to be affected. So that is where it's going to go, and the answer is C. Number 10. Insulin is involved in the regulation of blood glucose. Which row in the table describes the response to an increased concentration of insulin in the blood? Okay, so you've got A, B, C, or D, and you've got concentration of glycogen in the liver and concentration of glucose in the bloodstream. Again, pause the video, have a go. Okay, so again, I'm out with my underlining. So insulin, and okay, so we're talking about insulin. What's going to happen with insulin? So which row in the table describes the response to an increased concentration of insulin? Well, glycogen is the stored version of sugar, because insulin puts sugar into storage. So insulin in the liver should, well, if we're looking here, we've got options of increase and decrease, but it is going to increase, and concentration of glucose, because it's being stored, will decrease, which means our answer is going to be B. Number 11. A recessive allele is expressed in an individual's phenotype when the something, so A, B, C, or D. Again, pause the video, have a read, see how you get on, and I'll explain in a moment. So, a recessive allele is expressed in an individual's phenotype, so what they look like. Okay, so we're looking at a dominant allele has not been inherited from either parent. Now that has to be the correct answer. Okay, if you have a dominant allele from either parent, you could potentially end up with it being not expressed. So the recessive allele not being expressed, you'd end up with a dominant allele being expressed rather than the recessive one. If it was only inherited from one parent, you would end up in the same situation. Recessive allele has been inherited from only one parent. That wouldn't happen either, because you'd end up in the same situation where you would have one parent who is dominant, potentially even homozygous dominant, and recessive allele has not been inherited from either parent. Well, that would mean that there would be no recessive allele in the offspring. So that means that 11 is A. Number 12. The human body can be defended against disease by. Again, pause the video, have a think. Okay, number 12 is tricky, but it's just one of those ones you really need to revise for and read the course spec, read your teacher's notes. And number 12 is coming out at D. So lymphocytes produce antibodies. Okay, be careful you don't mix up antibodies produce lymphocytes. That, I imagine, would be quite a common mistake. Just get it the wrong way around. So lymphocytes produce antibodies. Okay, number 13. Starting where oxygenated blood enters first. Blood first enters the heart. Identify the order of blood flow through the heart. So we've got options going through the heart, A, B, C, and D, and you've got a diagram of the heart there. And again, just pause the video and have a think. Okay, so question 13, we are looking for oxygenated blood entering first. Okay, so oxygenated blood is going to enter from the lungs. So in that case, we are looking, so we've got question 13, so C, so we've got Q, R, P, and S. So we've got it coming in with Q. Okay, so it's going to enter from here into this atrium. It will travel down to this ventricle. It will go through this artery. It will come back in through this vein to this atrium, go down to this ventricle here, and back towards the lungs here. So it's Q, R, P, S. Okay, that's C. We didn't even need to know the names or anything here, which is quite good. If you're unsure, when you look at a heart diagram, which side pumps to the body, usually the heart diagrams are quite good. But you can see here where I'm adding that this is a thick-sided heart, this is a thin-sided heart, this is a thick-sided heart, because this side of the heart needs to pump to the rest of the body. A heart attack, this is question 14, a heart attack can be caused by a blockage to a blood vessel that supplies the heart tissue with oxygen. In which blood vessel does this blockage occur? Again, pause the video and have a think. Okay, so with 14 here, so we've got a heart attack and a blockage and a vessel that supplies the heart tissue with oxygen. Now, the vena cava is what brings back that deoxygenated blood to the heart. The pulmonary artery takes the blood away from the lungs. The coronary artery is what supplies the heart with oxygenated blood, and the pulmonary vein is what puts deoxygenated blood back towards the lungs. So our answer here is our coronary artery. Let's see. Number 15, the diagrams represent cross sections of 3 types of blood vessels. So we've got 3 diagrams there, vessels 1, 2, and 3. Which row on the table identifies the blood vessels shown in the diagrams? Again, pause the video and have a think. Okay, so we're looking at, we've got these diagrams here, so I'm having a look here, and we've got a valve. This is very important here. We've got a valve here. Now, arteries don't have valves, but veins do. So that must be a vein. Okay, which would mean that this is very similar, but very thick muscular wall compared to this very thin muscular wall. This is going to be an artery. Okay, and vessel 3, very thin cell. So you see, it's only 1 cell thick. So that's going to be my capillary. Okay, so vessel 1 is a vein, and I'm just looking at the ones that are veins in vessel 1, it's B or C. Vessel 2 is an artery, and vessel 3 is a capillary. So my answer for 15 is B. Okay, number 16. Nutrients from blood are absorbed into the villi in the small intestine. Which of the following statements is correct? So again, we've got A, B, C, D. Feel free to pause the video. Okay. So again, this is one of those ones that we really do need to revise for. We do need to read our notes on, but the answer we're looking for here is B. Okay. So the villi in the small intestine, they're going to absorb glucose and amino acids. Okay. Okay, number 17, so we're now on to Unit 3, materials. Some feeding relationships of organisms in a woodland ecosystem are shown in the food web. So we've been given a food web here. Due to the extreme weather conditions, the populations of tree-living and ground-living insects were greatly reduced. This could lead to what? So we've got these options of A, B, C, and D again. And I would encourage you this time to really pause the video and take a really good look at this diagram. Okay, so if the populations of tree-living and ground-living insects were greatly reduced, so we've got tree-living insects going down, and we've got ground-living insects going down. And we're going to look at what might affect. So an increase in small birds and decrease in spiders. Well, we would potentially see a decrease in spiders because they are predating upon the ground living insects. But the small birds would also go down. They would not increase. Okay, because they're predating upon the tree living insects. So they would actually go down. An increase in squirrels and a decrease in spiders. So where's our squirrels? We're here. Okay, so our tree living insects are in competition with the squirrels for nuts and leaves. So if we remove tree living insects or lower their numbers, the squirrel numbers should increase. And if we look at our spiders going down again, we have worked out so that if ground living insects were to go down, spiders would actually decrease because they have got less food to predate upon. So our answer here is actually B. So number 17 is B. Number 18, when investigating the disruption of bluebell plants in a woodland, 5 quadrats were thrown randomly. Soil moisture and bluebell abundance values were recorded for each quadrat. The results are shown in the table. So we've been given a table here of some results. Predicted bluebell abundance of the soil moisture was 34%. Again, pause the video and have a look. Okay, so we've got 5 quadrats. They're thrown randomly, so that's all good. We're looking at soil moisture and bluebell abundance. Okay, so we're looking if it was at 34%. So I know if I look at these results, I've got a soil moisture percentage of 36 here and a soil moisture percentage of 31. That landed at 25 and 20. So I know my result has to be somewhere between 25 and 20. And the only one that lands in there is C, so 18. And that is the correct answer. The following paired statement key can be used to identify some birds. So we've been given a paired statement key here, and use the information in the key to identify 2 features of a curlew. Again, pause the video and have a look. So number 19, we are looking at a curlew. So curlew, if we go back and we look over here, it's going to have a brown head. Okay. So looking at, that's got a brown head there, and there's a brown head there. So that immediately strikes off answers B and D. So if I want to look further back, how did I get to question 4 in the first place? Well, it's got a curved beak. And the only one that's got a curved beak as an option is A. And that's how we got to answer A. So 19 is the correct answer, A. Number 20, which row on the table describes changes in conditions that may improve the growth of plants in a greenhouse? Okay, again, pause the video and have a look. Okay, so if we're thinking plants, greenhouse, we're looking at the growth of them. Well, we want our light intensity to be nice and high, so we've got lots of photosynthesis going on. But carbon dioxide is one of the raw materials that we need for photosynthesis. So if we give it lots of carbon dioxide, it should do lots of photosynthesis. So our answer here is D. An experiment was carried out, this is question number 21, an experiment was carried out to investigate the effect of green light on the rate of photosynthesis in the pondweed, Elodia. So we're going to be given the setup here. Which of the following changes will provide a suitable control for this experiment? Again, pause the video and have a think. Okay, let's have a look at aim. So it's investigating the effect of green light. So if I want to have a control, okay, we've been given this green glass here and the light is going through the green glass, creating more green light for the plant to absorb. I'd want to get rid of the green glass and I'd want to replace it with clear glass. So I can prove that it was the green glass that was doing the work. So question 21 is D. Okay, number 22. Identify the pyramid of energy that represent the following food chain. We've got an oak, a squirrel, and a fox. So have a look at these pyramids and have a think. Okay, so we're thinking pyramid of energy. So pyramid of energy. So your first part in a food chain will always have the most energy. So the ones that got the most energy at the bottom is going to be A. Squirrel is going to lose energy. It's going to not get as much energy from the bottom. We're losing approximately about 90%, so we'll only gain about 10% as we go, and that would work out that 22 would be A. Number 23. An investigation was carried out to measure the change in body mass in a population of adult locusts kept in a tank at 25 degrees Celsius. The percentage of food converted into body mass was recorded over a 3-week period. The reliability of the results could be improved by what? So we got A, B, C, D. Again, pause it and have a look. Okay, so if we look through this, so a decrease in length of time. Well, no, that's going to just hasten our experiment, and we want to keep that 3-week period. That is a nice long period of time to look at what's happening. An increase in the mass of food given won't change the results. So what you're doing is giving them more food to potentially eat, but they're not necessarily going to eat it. If we increase the number of locusts in the tank, that's quite good. And the decrease in the temperature in the tank, that would probably just make them quite lethargic and potentially kill them. So we're looking at C. Okay, so number 23 was C. Last two questions, so we're at question 24. The graph shows the concentration of nitrate in a river measured on the first day of each year. A valid conclusion from this data would be what? So if we're looking here, we'll pause it for a moment and have a think. Okay, so nitrate concentration increased every year between 2010 and 2014. So we've got 2010 and 2014. I can tell straight away that that is not correct because there's actually a decrease here. So it's not A. There was a greater increase in nitrate concentration between 2011 and 2012 compared to 2014, 2015. So 2011, which is here, 2012, and we're looking at 2014, 2015, and again you'll work out that that is not actually true. No nitrates were present in the river between 2019 and 2020. No, because you'd be very quick to assume that that's correct, but remember we've started at 30 on our y-axis here. It does not actually go to 0. So when we are at this point here, we are actually at 30 milligrams per litre. So the answer here is D. The greatest distance in nitrate concentration between 17 and 18. Okay, and there you go. That's it there. And last question. The bar shows the percentage loss in yield of 4 crops and the cause of the loss. So we've been given our bar chart there, and we've got loss of yield on our y-axis. To reduce losses, pesticides can be sprayed onto the crops to kill weeds and insects. Predict which crop is most likely to show the greatest percentage increase in yield when the crops are sprayed with pesticide. Again, pause the video and have a think. Okay, so I want to be paying attention here. So we want to go, we've got a bar chart, it's got the percentage loss in yield for crops, and we're going to spray some pesticide on it to kill weeds and insects. So we've got weeds here. Okay, so we're looking for the one that's got the greatest of this color of bar, and that is going to be this bar here. Okay, that means we're going to kill the largest proportion of weeds in crop C, which means that crop C will benefit the most. And that brings us to the end of this paper. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up, give us a follow, and look out for future videos explaining future papers. Thank you.